Welcome Revolution Online. I am Joby, and I have the privilege of serving on the host team, which is just one of many teams that come together to make this happen. And if you are interested in joining a team, we want you to text the word CONNECT to the phone number that will be on your screen. And we are just so glad that you're here. And here at Revolution, we are all about helping people find Jesus and to live like him, and that's just our main goal here. And we do that in so many ways, but one of my favorites is just celebrating in song and just giving it all to him. So we just want you to join us, whether you're still in your car, you're at home in the kitchen, or you're out in the yard. We just want you to just be able to celebrate with us and come together in this time and to just have a little bit of fun today.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive, and all my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. Now your mercy has saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. Yeah, the old made new. Jesus, when I met you, you called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. Needed rescue, my sin was heavy, the chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you called me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing, now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, 'cause when you call my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You call my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. Hey, come on!
such a glorious day when we get the chance to gather together and worship. Just like Joby said, no matter what you're doing and no matter where you're at, I just pray that you are able to gather together and just fix your eyes on Jesus and give your gift of worship to him. We're going to share a new song with you today called Awake My Soul. And I love the words of this song where we hear praises, he hears faith. Our worship to God is a gift to him. I can't wait for the day that we're all back together in the sanctuary and I get to hear you lifting your voices to Jesus. That is such a beautiful moment. But I just encourage you, wherever you're at, whatever you're going through, place your faith in Jesus, call out to him, and join us as we sing Awake My Soul.
There is a sound I love to hear. It's the sound of the Savior's robe as he walks into the room where people pray, where we hear praises, he hears faith. There is a sound I love to hear. It's the sound of the Savior's robe as he walks into the room where people pray, where we hear worship, he hears faith. Awake my soul and sing his praise aloud, sing his praise aloud. Oh, awake my soul and sing his praise aloud, sing his praise aloud. Praise aloud, sing his praise aloud. Oh, wake my soul and sing, sing his praise aloud, sing his praise aloud.
Hey, Revolution Church, from our family to you, we hope you're having an amazing Memorial Day weekend, and I'm sure some of you are still in mourning over the first time since 1946 where the Indianapolis 500 will not be happening live today. But hey, we're in this together. A little practical tip: search Hot Wheels Indy 500 on YouTube. And it's not even close to the same, but it's all we got right now. Or maybe watch a rerun from the Indy 500 from a previous year. But my whole family's joining me for the first few minutes because we just want to share some things that we've been learning together in this first quarantine that we've ever been through as a family. There's so many things we just sense that God is teaching us and working in our lives. And so we just want to share that. And the kids are going to share just a couple things at the beginning. And then Shawna and I are just going to talk through some other things that we just see God's been working in us that we hope it's a challenge and encouragement for you. And we're not going to have the Bible verses on the screen today like we usually do. We're going to try to give some notice of what we're going to read early, so you can grab a physical Bible right now, or maybe open your YouVersion Bible app, and when we get ready to turn there, you can turn there and follow along in that way. So that's kind of some instructions.
All right, so Bentley's actually going to start. He's going to share something that God spoke to him in one of our family quiet times a couple of weeks ago.
Got it? You got it, yeah. Oh, you got it. Okay.
If God cares for birds, he cares for me a lot.
And that truth comes from something that Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6. And you guys don't have to turn there. Jacon's going to read the verse for us.
Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they?
Oh, is this me? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and Aspen, you're going to share something that, God's been teaching you just about family relationships and friendships and kind of the value of that, so.
Yeah, so one thing that God has been showing me is that I need to value my relationships with family and friends a lot more. Over the quarantine, I had to celebrate my birthday with my friends over Zoom and my family with masks and gloves in my window. So I got kind of emotional then because it just made me realize how much more and how important in-person relationships really are.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing, and we hope that's encouraging for those watching. So you guys can go watch the Hot Wheels Indy 500 now if you want to, all right? So take it off, have fun. We'll see you, take that with you. See you in a little bit.
So again, we just really feel like God has been working so many good things in our lives and in our family. And we just hope that this is really encouraging to all of you that are watching.
Yeah, for those that are followers of Jesus, we hope this connects. For those that aren't sure about Jesus, we hope this connects. And for the partners of Revolution, like you're all in with this community of faith, or those that maybe have just recently found us online. Again, we just hope this is, like Shawna said, encouraging, challenging. So one of the things that we're learning more and more through this time in our lives and our world is that prayer is a powerful weapon. And Shawna's going to read from Ephesians chapter 6. If you want to turn there, you can. This first century church planter and leader named Paul wrote Ephesians, and we're going to look at a few different things that Paul wrote today. But before we get to that, we've noticed like a lot more emotional highs and lows in this time. And part of the reason for that is we've been more aware of it. We've tried to be really intentional as a family, and Shawna's going to share about that. But another reason that we have experienced these extreme highs and lows sometimes with emotions is because the leadership weight that's come with this time in our world, that it's heavier than ever before, really. As I've been sharing with all of you in this new normal journey, our lives have slowed down somewhat because the kids' activities have stopped and there's no sports activities or school activities. But the weight of leading Revolution has been much heavier in this season because everything had to change. So there's been more on my plate in this season than pretty much any other time in ministry that I can really think of. And it's just been hard to navigate decisions that need to be made. There's been days where we feel like the weight has just been piling on us. So, and you're going to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, like Anthony said, we've been experiencing a lot of the highs and the lows. There have been days where I have been just so full of joy, but then there's other days where it just seems like the fear and the anxiety wins. And we've been really intentional about asking each other how we're feeling. And we have a daily rhythm where we ask each other, what emotion are you feeling today? And one of our friends shared on Facebook an emotional wheel that we actually want to hang in our house because that's how intentional we want to be about asking each other every day. We want to know where our kids are emotionally. We want to know where we're at emotionally every day. So we want to be more intentional about asking that. And like Anthony shared a couple weeks ago, he said, it's okay to not be okay. And we're letting our kids know that too, but we don't want to stay there. God has called us to process through that and even wage war against those negative emotions that try to take over and to take our thoughts to places of hopelessness and despair.
Yeah, so that's where prayer comes in. Prayer is a powerful weapon, and that's been more obvious in this time. And in Ephesians chapter 6, hopefully you've found that by now, toward the end of the Bible, there's this passage of Scripture that's referred to as the armor of God, where Paul compares all these different spiritual things to pieces of armor. So Shawna's going to read that for us. It's starting in verse 13.
Therefore, put on every piece of God's armor so you will be able to resist the enemy in the time of evil. Then after the battle, you will still be standing firm. Stand your ground, putting on the belt of truth and the body armor of God's righteousness. For shoes, put on the piece that comes from the good news so that you will be fully prepared. In addition to all of these, hold up the shield of faith to stop the fiery arrows of the devil. Put on salvation as your helmet and take the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Pray in the Spirit at all times and on every occasion. Stay alert and be persistent in your prayers for all believers everywhere.
So you have all these different pieces of weaponry and like shield and sword, breastplate, helmet, all this stuff. But it's interesting, Paul doesn't have a piece of armor to compare the last thing with, which is prayer. He talks about prayer at the end, and every other thing mentioned is illustrated through a piece of armor, except for prayer. And it's interesting because, I mean, there are other pieces of armor that Paul could have used. It's not like he ran out of, ancient armor to mention here. They had spears and bows. Then there are other weapons in Roman warfare as well, and Paul was a Roman citizen, so he would have known about that. So I just believe Paul doesn't compare any other weapon to prayer because none of them even come close to the power and effectiveness of the last weapon, prayer. So since Paul doesn't give us like a piece of battle gear to equate this to, maybe we could call this our secret weapon. And that's, again, what we've kind of been learning. Prayer is that secret weapon that God gives us to fight enemy forces and negative thoughts. And just a quick story on this. One of the prayer rhythms for me has been when I start to feel that weight, like I was talking about before, or those negative emotions start to kind of wage war in my mind, I'll just go for a walk. around our neighborhood and just start talking to God like he's standing next to me on that walk. So neighbors, I'm not talking to myself usually I'm talking with God. And so one day the weight was really heavy because it was 5 weeks ago or so. And I think that was when the numbers had kind of spiked in our county, and just trying to think through, man, God, how do we navigate not reopening Revolution because we never closed, but how do we navigate moving the mission forward in this time that we've never experienced? I've never experienced anything like this. I'm just talking with God about it and sharing how I'm feeling. So I get home from this prayer walk, I get on the mower and I'm mowing the yard, and I listen to this podcast. And the only thing I remember from the podcast was what Mark Sayers, this pastor in Australia, what he encouraged leaders listening to do. He said, I would encourage you to put together a health team or a COVID response team to help navigate moving forward as church communities. So later that day, I reached out to Matt Llewellyn and laid out the vision for that COVID response team. And in that first conversation Matt and I had, he said yes to leading that team. And then Matt got some individuals connected with Revolution to be on that team. Like every single conversation he had with the leaders that became part of that COVID response team said yes in the first conversation. And it was just amazing. Like with the help of that team and the clarity that God was giving me with Vision for Revolution, like we had a solid plan in 2 weeks. And then next week we start step 2 of that plan, which is our watch parties. And so that was just, I believe prayer, it was that weapon that cut through the worry and the fog. And I'm sure you relate to this. Like these emotions and these thoughts, they just keep cycling over and over again in our mind. Sometimes we just get stuck in our own head. It might be angry thoughts or fearful thoughts or worry. And prayer is a weapon that can stop that negative thought cycle. That negative emotional cycle. Prayer is a powerful weapon. We don't use it enough. Like I didn't use it enough before, and that's one of the things we're learning. And I know this has looked different for you, though. That's what it's looked like for me, prayer as a weapon. What's it look like for you?
Yeah, prayer has definitely been a weapon that I have actually used more in this quarantine. And I know this might sound a little weird, but we don't have a place in our house for me to really have like a prayer closet. Except for our laundry room. Yeah,
like that movie War Room. That woman's closet is bigger than our bedroom, so we don't have that. We got the laundry room, yeah.
Right. So on the days where it's raining outside or I've just deemed it too cold for me to go outside, I use my laundry room. And it's a little different, a little odd to hang out with all the unmatched socks and the Spider-Man underwear, but it's been my place during this season for me to just go and talk to God. And at the beginning of the quarantine, I really felt God was speaking to me about just being still and listening. So I have been super intentional about taking that time to just listen to God, and He has just been revealing so many things about myself and working things in me personally that I had pushed away for so long, and that have really hindered my relationship with Him and my relationship with others. But now I'm learning to walk with Him and to really lean into Him more on this journey that He has me on right now.
Yeah. And just last thing on this, prayer is a powerful weapon. We at the beginning of our new normal journey, we sent out a text and we posted this devotional called 21 Days of How to Pray. And if you did not do that devotional, or maybe this is your first time hearing about it, go back, like find that in YouVersion, and what an amazing, like we did that together. It was just so many little practical tools and ways to think about prayer in new ways. So that's one thing that we've learned, and we're continuing to learn. Another thing that really God was speaking early on in this quarantine season, that it seems like His whispers are continuing to get louder with, is this. And here's how we would describe it in a phrase: don't settle for negative normals. That's the statement that just keeps coming to our minds. And as we've been saying, God has a new normal, a better normal for us now. And on the other side of this, Isaiah 43:19, we shared it the first couple weeks of this journey. See, I'm doing a new thing. God is doing a new thing. We can't settle for what we thought was normal before. And many of us were longing for normal to return, and I get some of that, and some of the normals will return and need to. But our hope is that we go into this new normal. A new normal begins. Don't settle for the negative normals that were part of our lives and our families before. And so I'll illustrate it like this, and we've laughed about this many times, but I think it was the second week of our new normal journey in the talk. I recorded the talk from our living room at the house, and there was this background noise that was really distracting throughout the whole talk video. I didn't even notice it when I was recording the talk. I didn't even notice it when we watched the 9 a.m. service. Neither one of us noticed this background noise, and it wasn't until after that service I got a message on Facebook from someone that said there was a noise in the background of your talk that was really distracting. So I watched the 11 a.m. service with our family. I was like, yeah, that noise is really distracting. And here's what it was. If you remember this, if you watched that week, it was actually our 1959 original hardwood floors creaking. I didn't even notice it because I'm just so used to hearing it. I was totally oblivious to this negative, distracting, annoying noise that was in the background of that talk recording. And I think that's what our normal was like. I mean, definitely speaking from our family's perspective, as God's been whispering to us, there were so many parts of our normal that were negative and distracting, and if we're being honest, even annoying, that we'd allowed into our lives and our family, that they'd just been around so long, we'd normalized it, we didn't even notice it anymore.
Right. We had been so busy with work, with school, with sports, with all the other things that we were constantly adding to our schedules that we were always, running here or running there. We ate out at least 4 to 5 times a week,
yes.
At least. More often than not, our nightly routine was jump out of the car, brush your teeth, get your jammies on, and get to bed. And we've always tried to make sure to do prayer time with our kids, but even that was seeming rushed a lot. So being forced to stay home really forced us to recognize some of our leadership and parenting fails. And we've actually recognized quite a few of them. Yeah. But the biggest thing for me was that we weren't leading our kids spiritually like we should be. They kind of just got what was left over, for a lack of better words. And so I was doing this devotional, and this question that the writer asked just really stuck with me, and it just struck something in me. I want to read it to you. She asked, do we really want God's best for our kids, or do we have our own plan for what a successful child is that distracts us from keeping God front and center in our family?
And I want you, I really want us to hear that question, like let it settle for a second. That's such a big question that we've had to think through, so yeah.
So in this time, we have really been able to just pour into our kids. We've developed some rhythms with them that we want to make sure that we continue to do with them. We know that their relationships with Jesus are incredibly important, and God has given us this time right now with them to be their guide. So we want to make sure that we are being intentional with that as much as possible. And
there's a really cool story that kind of came out of that too, like with Bentley, right?
Right, because we've seen so much growth in them. And so Anthony had said at the beginning when we started being super intentional about our quiet times, that we were going to come back together after quiet time, and we're going to share about what God had been speaking to us in that time. And when we came back together, Bentley didn't really say a whole lot. But a few hours later, I was alone, and he came into my room, and he just came up to me and he said, Mom, I don't understand when Dad said about God speaking to us. And it was such a great opportunity for me to be able to talk with Bentley about the different ways that we can hear from God and how to listen for those whispers. And actually that phrase that Bentley shared with all of us earlier, that God had spoke to him, that came, just a few days after that conversation. So that was really cool.
Yeah, so we hope, we're just being real and vulnerable. We have learned so much. And we don't have it down yet. I mean, we've got a long way to go, but there's been some commitments we've made. We're actually signing a commitment as a family this weekend from some of the things that we just learned through quarantine. Some of those things we're going to commit to is, and I shared this a couple weeks in to this journey, that we've decided the kids won't be playing on 2 sports teams at the same time for now. And when they get older, 16 or later probably, we'll let them make that decision, and we hope they'll stick with that value, because you just become so busy when you're spread out like that. We're going to have dinner together around a table at home more times a week than we don't. That's kind of a commitment. We're going to continue with a Monday through Friday quiet time rhythm, and it's going to shift at different times probably. We've got to figure that out, but we're going to do that. We're going to go through devotionals as a family to continue to grow closer to God and each other. So here's a verse that connects with all of this. It's 1 Peter 5:10. You don't have to turn there. Shawna's going to read it.
So after you have suffered a little while, he will restore, support, and strengthen you, and he will place you on a firm foundation.
So if you remember, and maybe you're just tuning in for the first time to Revolution, but this was the first verse I shared with our church when we'd gone into lockdown, stay-at-home orders. This verse, and I just believe God just wants to continue to speak this. After you've suffered a little while, he's going to restore. And we're believing that for our lives, our families, our marriage, our church. We're believing, don't miss this. Don't miss this opportunity. We hope that we've been in this long enough that the reset button has been pushed, and these negative normals that we were just oblivious to, but we didn't like them. They were annoying, they were distracting from faith, the main priority of our lives. We hope that it's been long enough where we don't go back to that, friends. We don't want to go back to that. So that's another thing we've learned. Here's, I guess this is third thing, right? Self-care and self-leadership are absolutely essential jobs. And there's been a lot of discussion about essential jobs and non-essential jobs, so that's kind of why we worded it this way. But what we've learned and what we want to challenge all of you with is self-care and self-leadership are absolutely essential. And we're going to look at a few verses in 1 Corinthians chapter 9. If you want to turn there with us, we're going to read that in a minute. But Shawna's going to read a little section of this devotional that she's been doing over the last few weeks that really connects with this. So
the author writes here, she says, self-care is often thought to be selfish. Who is going to take care of everything else if I am taking care of myself? Well, my friends, research shows over and over that if you don't take care of yourself, eventually there will be no one to take care of everyone else. Your body will give out, your heart will harden, and your spirit will snuff out. We are not endless supplies of time, energy, faith, and love. We cannot give from an empty cup. God did not make us robots to begin with, and Jesus himself gave us a holy example of practiced self-care.
Yeah, and that last part, Jesus was a holy example, I would say a perfect example of this, with how he brought silence and solitude with his Father into kind of his daily practices, and prayer was a huge part of the life of Jesus. He had physical and spiritual rhythms to his life that kept his tank full. He balanced relationships well, where he spent time with people that he was pouring out to, but also people that would pour into him, especially his Father, of course. And so self-care is essential, self-leadership is essential. These two things go hand in hand. And this crisis has amplified this, because here's what this looked like for us. And I know this quarantine time was different for all of us, for sure. But here's what it looked like for us. The kids were all doing e-learning. So the kids, there's some self-leadership and some us leadership to keep them going with that. We were both working remotely, setting our own hours. We just got to get the job done. And Shawna's college classes were both moved to online. She was doing 2 college classes, both went to online. Workout facilities, gyms were closed, so there's nobody I'm meeting at a gym to keep those physical practices up. I'm not having accountability times in person with people. I did have some Zoom times with my life coach, so there was some people involved in helping, facilitate growth. But so much of the season for us rested on the foundations of self-care and self-leadership. It was on me. It was on Shawna to daily choose, we're going to lead ourselves today. I'm not going to just let my emotions direct my life. And I'm last week, we talked about right actions often precede right feelings. I'm going to do things I know are right, believing that feelings come from that, not doing things because I feel like doing them. So this is a quote from a John Maxwell devotional I did in this time. Thomas J. Watson, the former chairman of IBM, he said, "Nothing so conclusively proves a man's ability to lead others as what he does from day to day to lead himself."
Yeah, and we just sense that this is a layer of leadership we sometimes miss.
Yeah.
We have this concern in the church that we've built things on consumerism and that people expect church leaders to lead them. And we are called to do that, but we're going to fail you. We aren't always going to get things right. We aren't always going to be able to gather in person because crazy things like global pandemics happen in our world. And that's why self-care and self-leadership are so very important.
Yeah. So the most important person you'll ever lead is yourself. And the Apostle Paul, again, he understood this well. Here's what he says, 1 Corinthians 9, 25 through 27. So 25 through 27, Shawna's going to read this.
All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadow boxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. So in other words, Paul, he worked hard at leading himself so that he was able to effectively lead others. And leading yourself well means that you hold yourself to a higher standard of accountability than others do.
Yeah, and I didn't put this in the notes, but it just brought back another podcast I listened to that talked about front stage and backstage in our lives, that all of us have that front stage and backstage. And what we do in the backstage, that's the self-care, the self-leadership that we don't receive credit for. I mean, there's little fanfare that happens from those disciplines. But what leaders do day to day always pays off in the long run. Because success or failure, that's not an event, it's a process. And again, that was just amplified in this time. And last thing we want to just quickly share with you, and this might be the most important because it's so central to everything. Love is always the filter we look through. And we want to take this slow because this is such an important thing to let breathe and kind of move into all the thoughts and things that are happening in our lives right now. 1 Corinthians 13:7, it explains what love is. It says, love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. That's the perspective of love. That's the filter that love sees things through. And see, there's always a temptation for our perspective to shift to hate and division. That's what fear does to us. It has the opposite focus. Fear has the opposite focus. Fear gives up, fear loses faith, fear isn't hopeful, and it doesn't endure. And social media is a cesspool for fear and misinformation and so many other things that are as far away as possible from New Testament love. There are so many things that are out there to distract us from the love perspective, from filtering everything through love. But love is powerful. 1 John 4:1, perfect love casts out all fear. And if we can get the focus back on where it needs to be, back to the Jesus way of loving God and loving others, that's when our lives and our world will start to change. And so let's read that verse again. I want you to read it again, 1 Corinthians 13:7.
Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. And this is God's perspective on our world. This is God's perspective on you. God has never given up on you. God never loses faith in you. And God is constantly hopeful that your relationship with Him is going to continue to grow. And if you don't have a relationship with Him yet, that you're going to desire that for your own life soon. So I just want to challenge you, to encourage you to give into that love today.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that right now. Like that love, that amazing, incredible, unconditional love of God that never gives up, that always pursues us, is available right now. And all you have to do is make this verbal confession of, God, I accept that love. God, I want to love you and love others. That's what I want my life to be about. I accept that love right now. And we're just going to say a prayer. And I just pray that some of you watching, like this is the day where you accept that gift of God's love, and it begins to change everything about your story. So God, what a season to be through, to be going through, to be coming out of right now in some ways, but also not to be coming out of in some ways, because there's things that you've taught us and that we've learned in this journey that we don't want to unlearn. We don't want to go back to those negative normals. And God, I pray for my friends right now that are watching and maybe haven't taken that step to accept your love as the foundation of their life, as everything, like your love, accepting that and living it out in our lives with others, that's what this journey is about. That's what our life is about. So I pray as people are making that decision and saying out loud, God, I accept your love, that you would just, wherever people are at in their living rooms, kitchens, cars, dining rooms, that you would just begin to change them and work through them. And pray this in your name. Amen. We just want to encourage you, text, if you took a step today of faith, text Jesus to 574-498-2233. If you accepted that love today, if you took a step in your faith journey, we would love to connect with you. So just text Jesus to 574-498-2233. We're celebrating with your friends, and we're going to continue to celebrate through this next song.
Darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, I won't be shaken, no, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. No, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear, it doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name. Power in your name. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. Woo! There's resurrection power that can save. There's power doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Stand in your love. Stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love.
Well, welcome, Revolution. We are so excited to be with you once again and have you celebrating with us. My name is Julie, and this is one of my favorite kiddos in the whole entire world. This is my son, Raleigh. Raleigh, can you tell him how old you are and what grade you're in?
I'm 7 years old and I'm in 3rd grade.
That's right. My kiddo just wrapped up his 2nd grade year and is moving on to 3rd grade. And we're really excited today to share with you a little bit about what's happening with our Next Gen ministry. If you are a family with Revolution, you know we have an amazing team that works tirelessly to serve our families and our kiddos. And we have a very special guest with us. Can you introduce him, Raleigh? Who is this with us today? Is that Mr. Mike? Mm-hmm. Yes, this is Mr. Mike Hack, and he is Raleigh's small group leader from the factory at Revolution. Mr. Mike, how are you doing today?
I am doing great.
Good. Why don't you share with us real quick why you decided to serve in our Next Gen area as a small group leader?
I've always been good with kids, and my wife had mentioned, hey, why don't you do that? And I thought, I don't think I want to do that. She said, well, you're good with the grandkids. And a few Sundays in a row, they had asked about adults helping out with the kids. And Nick volunteered his time to help out. And I thought, well, Nick can do it. I'm going to do it. So
I love that.
And so I had decided I was going to go ahead and do that. And that was the following week. The night before I was supposed to shadow one of the teachers, I had a dream that I was teaching that class. And I was teaching a lesson on the blind baker. Okay. And the kids had asked me what it was like to be blind. So I said, well, I'll put you all up against the wall and blindfold you. And I didn't shoot anybody, but I just put them up against the wall. And then I asked them to go find their seats. And so that was kind of what I was dreaming about that night. The next day was Sunday, and I was supposed to shadow one of the teachers. And the lesson for that day was the blind man, and they blindfolded the kids. So that kind of confirmed to me that God was telling me, hey, you know, you need to step in and help out with kids. And I've loved it. It's been a learning experience.
Definitely. Okay. Well, I love that you shared how you had kind of been thinking about it, and then through encouragement from Nick Ryan on our worship team, and confirmation from God through that dream that this is where he wanted you to serve at Revolution. I love that. And as a mom of a kiddo in your small group, I'm so thankful that you take the time to do that. Why was it important to you in this season when we're socially distancing and we're not in the building? Why did you decide to continue to stay connected with a couple of the kiddos from your small group?
Well, to be honest, I was actually asked, but after I said yes, that I would do it, I've enjoyed Raleigh. I've got a couple kids that I guess I'm responsible to follow up with, and I think some of the other teachers do the same thing. and actually 2 different kids.
Okay.
One is really quiet and reserved. I can get a smile out of him once in a while. And with Raleigh, our conversation is I usually just hold on and let Raleigh tell me all about his adventures and all of his toys and his cousins and about the farm. And we've done some planning. We got some adventures coming up.
I love that. So Raleigh, tell me, you do like talking to Mr. Mike and your guys' phone calls, because you'll call or FaceTime and you talk with him. Why do you like talking with Mr. Mike?
Well, because we like a lot of the same things, and it's fun because I don't get to see him very often like I did when we did go to church.
Right. So it's kind of a good time to catch up with him and see what he's been up to and share what you've been doing while you're at home. Yes. So we have several Next Gen small group leaders who have been connecting one-on-one with their kiddos throughout this season. And I'm thankful for it. Again, as a parent, I'm really thankful for this time because it means so much to have another adult speaking to my kids and encouraging them and talking to them about God and talking to them about what they're learning in this time. You also have gotten some challenges from Mr. Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share a little bit with everyone what Mr. Mike has challenged you to do?
Well, one of the challenges was to pray for one night pray for Mom, one night pray for my sister, one night pray for my brother, and one night pray for Dad.
Yeah, and he took that challenge very seriously, and he talked to each of us about what was going on and how he could pray for us, and then he did. And every time that he talks to Mr. Mike, he gets a challenge. And I'm just so thankful for people who pour into my kiddo and encourage them to be the best version of themselves. It just speaks to how at Revolution we want to celebrate together because we're better together and contribute in each other's lives. And so I'm really thankful for that. And Mike, thank you so much for pouring into him and for sharing with us today. And thank you so much to all of our Next Gen team who have been serving in this season, whether it's as a small group leader connecting one-on-one with kiddos or, posting on our Revolution parent page. We have had volunteers doing memory verses and reading stories. And so just a huge thank you to so many people who are making this season a season where we truly are better together. Thanks, Revolution. Mr. Mike and Raleigh, thank you so much for sharing. I'm so grateful for the friendship that's growing between you two right now and the friendships between so many small group leaders and their kiddos. If you're a parent today and you want more information on how to connect with our Next Gen, please text the word parent to 574-498-2233. We're going to be able to shoot a couple links directly to your phone and you can jump into those groups and get all the latest information. If you'd like to take the next step of giving today, you can do so by following one of the ways appearing on your screen right now. Thank you so much to those of you who are continually contributing to Revolution in this season. Thanks to your generosity, we are moving this mission forward. As Anthony said, next week starts our watch parties, and we are so excited to be rolling those out. Make sure you stay tuned to Facebook, watch our New Normal Noon videos this week for all the information you need. Revolution, we love you, we cannot wait to see you, and we hope you have a fantastic week.